There are many lessons to be learned from the ugliness that turned to tragedy on a summer weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let's start with the fact that this happened in America in 2017. Hundreds of Klansmen and Nazis were emboldened to slither out from the crevices where they hide to display their hatred for the world to see. They are the symbols of racial and religious bigotry that spawned mass murder in the most shameful moments of recent human history. And if you were somehow shocked that such bigotry still exists, you haven't been paying attention. Too many of us create a bubble of ignorance by excluding people from our social circles that don't think the same way we do. We even exclusively watch TV news channels and read articles that support our bias and agenda. It only creates a divide, and in the dark chasm of that divide, hatred festers. The harbingers of hate descended on the liberal college town of Charlottesville because town officials were scheduled to take down the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Now there are some legitimate arguments for not taking the statue down, but showing up in hoods is self-defeating lunacy, for it only confirms the argument that the statue represents the kind of racism that fosters slavery. I guess the KKK has never been known for its intelligence. I do fear the growing movement that uses the enlightened social mores of today to scrub history. For where does it end? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson both owned slaves. Do we tear down their monuments in Washington and rename cities and states? No, we don't censor history. We learn from it, and we can learn much more from our scars than our glory. And as much as we might be tempted post-Charlottesville to ban future KKK, white supremacist, or Nazi gatherings, our love of our Constitution and the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly it grants must be held sacrosanct, even when it's used by those who spew hatred. Instead, we must treat them like the fringe groups they are. Ostracize them, ridicule them, mock them if you must, but let them chant and goose step in their own vacuum of ignorance. Because when your anger causes you to meet their hatred on the streets with violence, they win, because chaos is their goal. And the nation's media must also stand down. I know these hate groups and their antics attract ratings and readers, but at what cost? When you give these hate groups attention, they're emboldened, and you become part of the problem. I also hope city officials and police departments across the country learn from the ineptness of Charlottesville's mayor and police department, who were shockingly unaware of the threat to their city. The mayor admitted that he trusted the KKK and the Nazis to keep the peace. Here's a tip. When protesters show up wearing helmets, body armor, carrying bats and shields, they're expecting some trouble. Maybe you should too. Mayor Michael Signer should resign or be forced out. And finally, I've saved the least for last. Donald Trump was heavily criticized for not mentioning by name the KKK, Nazis, or white supremacists in a speech he gave on the day of the violence, where he did condemn hatred and asked for all Americans to love and respect each other. The hate that took the life of 32-year-old Heather Heyer was all but lost in a new wave of political hatred. And the media, again, was more than willing to participate for ratings and revenue. After all of this, we were not able to come together as Americans. The divide on the streets of Charlottesville just further exposed our national divide. I started this commentary by pointing out that there are many lessons to learn from Charlottesville, with the sad understanding that we're not ready to learn them yet. I'm Larry Menti. See you again next week.